I'm writing a letter to some people, and a lot of it has to do with the capabilities of these BCI neural implants and the really, really, really mean, heinous people that are connected to it. And one of the things that I just have to mention is my son, even though he has cerebral palsy and is mentally ill because of the torment by people that are connected to his BCI neural implant that I certainly never consented for him to have, or any of us. Um, they can do something called glitching, where for some we'll forget for a second what's going on and get disoriented, and causes us to lose stuff, and it's very tormenting and torturous, especially for people like us who have attention deficit disorder as well. And my son, he works, even though he is disabled and handicapped, he works odd jobs for different rich people around the Beaufort area. And he he he's been doing some yard work and cleaning a rich lady's boat and stuff for the past couple of days. And because the same crime rate wrecked my car a couple of years ago, the only way that we can get groceries is for him to walk to the store. I can't leave the house because after my life was threatened, or actually after Angus was murdered several months ago, I've had to hide in the house because I was told that there were people that were going to hire people, thugs, to drive by, shoot me, and of course, that would be a dangerous situation for not only me, but also because I live within 500 feet of Beaufort High School with 1,300 school children in it, and certainly did not want my son shot as well. But he still is brave enough to walk all the way to Publix. It's a long way, and like I said, he's handicapped. He walks with a limp. One of his feet and his legs are smaller than the other, and because he's been working for this lady for the past couple of days, he had $300 cash in his pocket. And because of their glitching and their punishment and their coercing and their manipulations and their cruelty, and their tampering with federal witnesses, many who are not federal witnesses, but many of the people that are involved in this, that are perpetuating, thus participating in this, are doing like the tampering with federal witnesses and things like that under color of law. They seem absolutely not concerned whatsoever with any of the repercussions of their behavior. All they want to do is absolutely destroy our lives, make our lives a living hell. And I believe they're trying to make me commit suicide. They want me to become so desperate and hopeless. But I can't do that because my son has never lived independently in his life. He has always depended on his mother. So, if something happens to me, he wouldn't survive either. And if something happened to him, I wouldn't survive either. And that goes for the other two victims as well. Um, but the thing is, the BCI neural implant causes him to have drug cravings so intense and powerful that he has no way to fight them. So they make him Jones for heroin, that the crime ring supplies him for free in a within 500 feet of 1,300 school children. But so after he worked all day today and got dropped off, he rested for a little while, but then he walked back all the way to Publix to get us a couple things. But somewhere between the house and Publix, he lost every bit of his money that he was so proud of. And, you know, the other thing is these people that are connected to us are so psychologically twisted and psychotic and mean and cruel that intermittently, while I've been writing this letter to these people that I'm hoping will take a little mercy or pity or sympathy or whatever on us and help us not only survive but to get the hell out of here and relocate someplace that would be safe for us, so we didn't have to live in fear and struggle to survive so hard. Um, Intermittently, they have reminded me over this connection of how terrible it is for him to have lost his money, and how he came back into my room after he got back from Publix and he had tears in his eyes. And you know, with he could be on disability. He could be getting a free SSDI check or whatever. But I've always mainstreamed him, and I've always insisted that he go to school with everybody else, do the best he possibly could, that he work as and certainly you know, get as far up on that Maslow's hierarchy of needs towards self-actualization as he possibly could, as he has every right to, as much as anybody else, to say whether he's disabled or not. He was actually offered an increased pay to wash dishes for a woman locally at the Breakwater restaurant not long ago, but they saw a video I posted on him about him online on Facebook that, you know, even though he got very, very upset later and you know, because he felt like I had really, really betrayed him and attacked him and humiliated him. I posted it on Facebook because I wanted to show what someone who is being remotely mind controlled by these BCI implants looks like, how they behave, how whoever is connected to him is able to rob him completely of his identity, his rock star personality, his kind, gentle nature, and they take over and make him an involuntary uh, pawn or soldier of terrorism and very reckless endangerment of the public. But throughout me trying to write this letter, they have sent this thought to my head repeatedly, making me feel bad over and over and over again for him having lost this money and how disappointed and and upset that he really is. So, even though I haven't heard the thought, I happen to know that it has been interrupted. It has been sent to me and interrupted my writing. It multiple times during me trying to write this letter, and it is a very deep, sick, I think, really probably psychotic, sadistic kind of thing of a very twisted psychological torment and torture. One of the other things is during the time that he was being remotely mind controlled and not eating. They would not allow him to eat or drink, and that has a lot to do with the song that was released in 1990 by a band called um, um, anyway, it's called Hunger Strike, and it was written by Chris Cornell. Um, Temple of the Dog is the name of the band, and it was written by Chris Cornell and sung by Chris Cornell of Audio Slave and Soundgarden, and also Eddie Vedder of Pearl Jam, and it's called Hunger Strike, and it has to do with people that are so high and mighty and feel that they're so much better than everybody else, um, you know, decadent. I don't mind stealing bread from the mouths of decadents, but I can't feed on the powerless when my cup's already overfilled. And it certainly, for 1990 is also the year that he was born. And I have used that song many times in peacefully protesting because I finally got exactly what Chris Cornell meant when he wrote that song. Chris Cornell committed suicide a few years ago, and he was my favorite all-time voice of rock and roll music, and nothing. Yeah, it's true, nothing really compared to Chris as far as his voice, but you have to think somebody that is so gifted, that sings so beautifully, that millions and millions of people love, and still, him, artists and people that are, operate on that left side of that brain, they feel things so much deeper than a lot of other people that are real calculating and, mathematic and what maybe even tactical or strategic, things like that. But he took his own life because he just couldn't take it anymore. I guess of all the disappointments in the world, and even back, before 1990, sometimes when Chris wrote that song, it clearly indicates just how ruthless and sadistic and mean and with insatiable hunger for power and more and more and more wealth, that um, you know they're farming babies. The slaves are all working. Is part of that song. But for punishing me for using hunger strike, they've made Clayton go on a hunger strike for many days and nights and sleep deprive him to punish and torture me. Also, it's long since been proven that people can remotely mind control the person and speak whatever that person who is remotely controlling the victim, speak through that victim. They did that with my 5-year-old nephew, and warning me that the COVID-19 pandemic was coming before it ever got here, months before we ever even heard of it, and warned me about exposing or reporting anything to do with the COVID-19 bioterrorism attacks that occurred on my property that looked to be very suspicious of being COVID-19 super spreader events. There must be some reason why the most medically advanced, technologically advanced country on planet Earth had such a significantly, disproportionately higher death rate than any other country in the world. And anyway, so they have really been, they're able to speak through him. My nephew gave me death threats when he was 5 years old because of the BCI implant. My son gives me death threats. He delivers the death threats for this person that is too much of a coward to confront me directly and threaten me directly. They want to use my son to bring me down, which, I have to admit is very effective. He's my greatest strength too, not in addition to being my strongest weakness. But so they've done that, and I just I can't, I guess that's the thing, that, people that have billions in the bank could glitch him and cause him to lose his money and then use it against me to make me just feel like just pure hell. And certainly that military expression, no quarter, certainly comes to mind that I recently discovered, and so I'm sure it was another threat, another very, coded kind of threat to threaten me. But here's the thing. I happen to believe that we are very much in the middle of something that has, although it has absolutely much not to do with us, it has everything to do with us, because these people have now decided that they will accept nothing less than no quarter because they want to actually take our lives. For couple of different reasons. First of all, some of them are afraid if I ever give them a federal witness stand. No intentions or desire to spend years of my life testifying or prosecuting anybody. All I want us to do is be disconnected, released, um, and allowed to relocate to some place that we can live free and happy and free from persecution and from living in constant fear like we are, and also under the federal poverty line on food stamps. So, that $300 was really important to him, and it made him feel proud, and it made him feel independent. But of course, that was, stripped away just like everything else. But when he is, remotely mind controlled after this local crime room gives him heroin to punish me for talking about that the Taliban was permitted to grow heroin for the whole 20 years that we were in Afghanistan, and now, Afghanistan and the Taliban, they produce 83% of the world's opium and heroin, and are killing 130 plus innocent, powerless American citizens every single day in the opiate crisis. So they're punishing me for that by giving him free heroin after this. Whoever's connected to his device makes him have uncontrollable drug cravings, and they're delivering it to my home within 500 feet of children, and in a school zone, which is certainly would be something that most people wouldn't even consider doing. But give me just a second. And of course, local law enforcement wants to tell me if I called 911 to try to get them to help me to stop him from once he's high on this heroin that they're giving him for free. Uh, they were forcing him to ride a bicycle because of the remote controller on this device was forcing him to ride a bicycle all over Beaufort, South Carolina, over bridges, even though he has balance problems, and even though one of the sheriff's deputies obviously did not know that all of our BCI implants are connected to someone that is honest and has our best interest at heart, and monitors and records all video, audio, and all brain activity and all transmissions to and from all 4 of our devices. The deputy obviously didn't know that, and when he told me that he had witnessed Clayton wreck his bicycle in the middle of Sea Island Parkway, a very busy highway nearby, in the middle of the daytime, about over a year ago, and I guess this was to in attempts to cover up, by the chance that Clayton at night, high on heroin, would, with balance problems from cerebral palsy, would veer out into traffic. His bicycle go through the window of a Beaufort citizen or tourist car, and possibly kill some other mother's children besides mine. And that wasn't a very good cover up, because but like I said, I'm sure they didn't know that it was being recorded, not only on their body cams but also on these BCI implants that are certainly very high def and high, very high tech. So when I called Beaufort County and asked them to help me with them, they told me they would call, if I called 911 to ask them to help me again, that they would put me in jail because I was costing them money. So on Mother's Day last year, I woke up. Clayton had been clean for a week, not done any heroin. I was taking care of him on the couch. Was spending $160 a day, even though money is certainly not important that much to me. I was spending $160 a day to get him kratom and gummy THC gummies so that he would not suffer from heroin withdrawals, and he was doing so good. But on Mother's Day, these sadistic, ruthless, heartless, cruel bastards, first thing they did was they made Chloe, who, after that, on my last trip to Washington, to punish me for peacefully protesting in Washington. And when I came back, Chloe was almost dead from a crime ring conspirator having been bribed and neglected. She neglected my dogs. She locked my big dog in the house for many, many days. My house was covered in feces. Neither dog had anything to eat or drink. And Chloe, my little min pin that was 14 years old, was nearly dead. I found her outside. She was cold and wet because the only water that she had outside was from a little ornamental fish pond that many times she would, go outside, and for some reason she liked that water better than even the water in the house, and she would try to drink out of it, and she'd fall in every time. So she would fall every time. So when I got back, she was nearly dead, and this was and she, like I said, she had a neural implant, but of course the CIA's been implanting dogs for they started implanting dogs and remotely controlling them back in 1963. So, but I took her to 2 different emergency vet clinics, different places, even though I had just driven 9 hours from Washington. And she spent several days at one veterinary hospital, but at a cost of $4,000. And the fact that she wasn't getting any better, decided to bring her home so I could give her, personal one-on-one care. Been a registered nurse for 33 years, so I was going to try to do that, so that maybe to try to save her life. But when I got back from, she was in Savannah. I'd spent several days in a really cheap hotel there so I could be close to her and go visit her every day. And when I got back to the Marine Corps Corpse, that's code, Marine Corps, foot of the Paris Island Marine Corps Bridge, she raised her little right arm, like she was testifying, and they stopped her heart right there. She went into cardiac arrest and died. And I pulled over immediately, and first thing that you do in a cardiac arrest is you try a sternal rub. Perhaps I don't know if General Milley's wife did that when she saved that man's life at that ceremony. That certainly she's been given a lot of credit for, but and I respect her for that. But after that, I realized that she was gone, and I had to let her go. But of course, they waived her little arm like that to threaten me about testifying against any of them as a federal witness. But even though I'm not interested in testifying, you know, all four of us will be federal witnesses until the day we die. We've witnessed probably more federal RICO crimes than any other victims ever in history. So, you know, but for some reason, people feel very threatened about me taking the stand, which is why they have punished me by standing me up so many times over and over and over and over and over again, promising me that, you know, the end was in sight, and then they'd stand me up several times. And this letter that I'm writing, it talks about one of those, but it was also a death threat against that other person involved. So, you know, but it reminded me back when I found the love of my life, Scott Hieronymus, dead at 31 years of age, and later found out that he had been mentally tortured and coerced and tormented and murdered by this crime ring because they thought that he knew too much about things. He actually knew something about these microwaves, about these microwave weapons. Even back then, he tried to tell me, but he knew somehow that people were able to see and hear everything that I am. He said, you know, why are you, many, many, many times. And he talked about the you know, the damaging radiation effects of microwaves. I remember that. But when I found him, rather than me pulling him out of that car, laying him on the ground and starting CPR like I would have done any other time instinctively, this device took over my reactions and didn't allow me, for some reason, it didn't even occur to me because they blocked that, they glitched that, the same way they glitched Clayton to lose his $300 that he worked so hard for at odd jobs. And I didn't start CPR on Scott when it might have saved his life. For many, 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 many years after that, they blamed me for killing him, and I didn't. I certainly didn't. He was loving my life. He was 31 years old. It was almost 17 years ago, and nobody's ever, you know, answered for it. But they may not ever answer for it. But you know, we certainly would still like to live, and like to live without being tortured and tormented and threatened, and you know, having to struggle to even live. You know, certainly a few months ago when I almost lost my life in a conspiracy that has been blamed on the Secret Service and local law enforcement, as well as local Memorial Hospital. Well, Beaufort Memorial Hospital had a very good reason to want to murder me, and I have absolutely every bit of documented proof, also of audio and video documentation that was transmitted and stored on multiple servers in multiple undisclosed locations, to show that beyond any shadow of a doubt it was a murder attempt. It has to do with the fact that my nephew, when he was an infant at 8 months of age, Dr. Mercier, who was an ER physician, intentionally mutilated his brain. And after this, he had grand mal seizures during that traumatic brain injury. And after that, he was implanted with a BCI neural implant. A couple of reasons for that. First of all, he was BCI neural implant they used for many, many, many years to send me messages about not talking for a long time. All he could say was, oh, like, no, don't talk. He did that, and the first time that I was stood up was in 2016 by someone that was not who he appeared to be, and pretended to be a drug thug gang leader, and he stood me up when he asked me to go on a trip with him because I was absolutely enthralled with him. And I'm not really going to get into all that, but the thing is, I was so heartbroken and devastated sitting in that house alone in Bloomingdale, Georgia, and after I was stood up, and then suddenly my sister, who now I know actually is I don't even wish that I had to ever claim her again as long as I live, because she actually, as that child's birth parent, actually consented to that child having intentional traumatic brain injuries. And she showed up out of the blue, even though she'd never done that before, and she had Luke with her, my nephew, and I have a picture of them together because immediately it lifted that devastation and that heartbreak that supposed drug thug had inflicted on me very cruelly when he stood me up. But here comes Luke, and it was like, well, if I don't talk, yet later it was used to say to imply that don't talk and you can still enjoy this relationship and give all this child all the love that he truly deserves. And so, but now he's been taken away from me, and I've been blocked completely because of a non-familial, highly illegal, and corrupt and bribed judge. Family Court Judge granted adoption to him over a year ago, and every single day that he is missing, and I don't know where he is because these people did have a history of being very transient. And even in spite of the fact that someone over my device, over the satellite, threatened his life immediately prior to that, and said that if I wanted to know what was wrong with him, I could find out during his autopsy. Also, there's been a lot of threats about me saying anything about terrorism. I don't know if you can see my wrist, but you can see it's deformed. Well, I was remote controlled to fall off my back deck um, uh, good years back, and when I lived in Bloomingdale, Georgia, because Emma, my Jack Russell Terrier, was in heat, and I was trying to get its code. I was trying to keep her shut up, while she was in heat, so I could breed her to another Jack Russell Terrier. But instead, they forced me to fall down my back steps and hit my head. See the scar right here, and I landed on my head, and I tried to block my fall with this wrist, and it's been deformed ever since, and it's caused a great deal of functional problems because I'm right-handed. But the code was terrier and wrist, which is terrorist. Don't talk about terrorism. And also, Emma was killed the day before Thanksgiving, 2019, with rat poison. And the threat from my own vile crime-ring family was, the next day was Thanksgiving. It was the first time that me and my son and I had never been invited to Thanksgiving at my Uncle Sherwood and Aunt Martha Bender's house in Beaufort, who were, like I said, are crime-ring members and definitely conspired to hurt Luke so terribly. The message was, if I want to live, if I want to live, I'll keep my mouth shut. It was that same terrier thing, but it was several months before that they had communicated through Luke to me and talked very much about many aspects of the forthcoming COVID-19 pandemic. And also, something that absolutely cannot be denied is, if you look, Bill Gates knew it was coming too. And Bill Gates was responsible, or partially responsible, in conspiring with Nuance, who my ex-husband was also conspiring. He's a Nuance employee in Atlanta, to commit these COVID-19 bioterrorism super spreader events on my property. And so that was a threat. So Bill Gates knew it too, though. Somehow he got some insider trading, knew what was going to happen, because BioNTech, he invested $55 million in BioNTech, which is a German pharmaceutical company that, although they don't have any they had never produced any kind of product that I saw online. My Google results showed they were actually funded and received United States government grants for a number of years prior. I don't understand that, but out of the blue, BioNTech joined forces with Pfizer USA, and they were one of the three companies that actually produced COVID-19 vaccine. But one of the things that, I'll get back to that. One of the things about when they've been remotely mind controlling him lately and controlling him like a puppet on a string, very much completely not his personality, whatever. At certain times, the same kind of psychological torment and torture that they use, very twisted and sick and just sick, and makes me really, really just want nothing more than to kill all of them. But you just don't touch my children. You just don't. I mean, you ask any good mother, and you just don't do it. But they would let him shine through. His personality manifested itself very briefly, and he would say, please help me, and then I would rush to try to help him, and they'd take over again, and he would become very hostile and combative and attack me and say very ugly things. And it's very sick psychological torture, psychological very, very calculating and sick. And I can't help but think that, that DARPA got all this stuff from the CIA and MK Ultra projects, and all this, the psychological and physical torture and torment that CIA, even though Richard Helms claims he destroyed all the records, it's bullshit. He did not. He gave it all to DARPA. DARPA and the CIA had worked a long time before that. And he gave, well, the DOD and DARPA. But Helms just said before congressional hearings that he had destroyed all those records back in the 70s, and it's bullshit. He didn't. He handed it over to DARPA, and DARPA started their brain neurotechnology. Well, they started their neurotechnology project in 1974. Then the Brain Project and the RAM Project, both acronyms, and shortly during that time period too. But now in a cover-up attempt, DARPA has completely redone their website. There's no mention of the Brain Project, RAM Project, or the Neurotechnology projects as they were actually done in the 1970s. Now, anybody should have known that people would have downloaded that previous website in total complete web pages, and it would be very hard for for DARPA to squirm and wiggle out of that. But now they are claiming that they're affiliated with the Brain Initiative started by Barack Obama. So they've gone ahead and advanced this some more, and it's actually it's just complete bullshit, and they just keep contradicting themselves back and forth, and they keep changing web results and things to try to cover up, and the Brain Initiative, I believe it's under Health and Human Services, didn't have anything to do with the Brain Project, that was started by the very unethical, crimes against humanity neurotechnology program started by DARPA in 1974. But that's one thing about the RAM project, is the RAM project, although they say that it's to restore memory and soldiers or disabled veterans with traumatic brain injuries. That's actually part of what was done with Luke, and that's why his brain was intentionally mutilated. Also, my daughter, for very, very strange circumstances, developed type 1 diabetes after she was taken from me in a very illegal, corrupt, non-familial, well, actually illegal, corrupt South Carolina adoption when she was 5 years old. And at 7, she developed type 1 juvenile diabetes out of the blue, even though we have no familial history on either side of this. And since then, she has been used by DARPA and their various partners to for advancements in diabetic research, diabetic supplies, like pumps, like diabetic pump advancements and things like this. But and I'm not going to get into that because it's very upsetting. But you know, this is the thing. Okay, we're in the middle of something that we have no business in the middle of. There seems to be people on both, at least two sides. I don't know how many sides there are, but at least two different groups, and we're being used as pawns and soldiers, against these groups. And all this information that I'm obtaining through my research, a large part of the reason why I have to do all this research and all this investigating online is because, for so many years, well, 3 decades, people have falsely imprisoned me, another crime against humanity, and claimed that I'm mentally incompetent and insane and things like that. And so, it certainly went towards, discrediting me, stigmatizing me, and enabling and perpetuating these people to continue exploiting, researching, violating me in lots of different ways. And so everything that I to try to get people to believe in it, to help us, help save our lives, help end our misery, help me being from now I'm being attacked what feels exactly like DHPMs daily. And I'm developing Havana syndrome, although I have every reason to believe that Havana syndrome didn't really Anyway, you know, the United States blamed it on the Russians, but the State Department claimed they got all these symptoms while in Havana, but Russia and Cuba are allies, and no Cubans are complaining of all these symptoms, but a lot of targeted individuals in the United States are complaining of these very same symptoms. A lot of people that, you know, perhaps for whatever reason are judged to be, you know, troublesome or threatening or for whatever reason. Um, but you know, so I'm being attacked with those every single day. And recently, after somebody had promised me that I could actually trust him to put our lives in his very hands, pretty much deserted me and told me that if he tried to protect or defend us in any way, that I would be murdered. Shortly after that, I was attacked violently, viciously, very powerfully, with what felt very much like a do HPMs again. And apparently, the main unit of this BCI implant must be on my left side, because I get terribly torturous, loud, ear piercing, you know, ice pick in my eardrum noise. It sounds very much like a jet engine. And also, I was attacked so terribly and hard that the side of my face and neck, I assume that must be where the implant is, was hot. And so, you know, it clearly somebody was trying to fry the implant or, you know, short circuit it, which would, of course, you know, enabled somebody to rush in here and shoot me with a gun, you know, shoot me in the head and I'd be dead. They could go ahead and cut the device out, be gone, because they're, you know, they're worried about us being obstacles to them, you know, to them making trillions of dollars in profits after they've made so much money on us already through data mining and, you know, from the human trafficking, modern day slaves, that you know, that was all paid for by United States citizens. Every single bit of it was paid for, and so they're mad because they feel like they're going to lose trillions of dollars when the most marketable group of, you know, of these BCI neural implants would actually be terrorists, and the terroristic capability to turn a kind-hearted, innocent, um, you know, very non-violent person such as my son into an involuntary, helpless terrorist soldier would be very, very appealing to groups like the Taliban or whatever, because you know, the Taliban can continue to sell heroin and opium and keep growing to over 75,000 now, not really lose any of their main force, but they can implant little children in Afghanistan by holding the parents at gunpoint, say, well, either, you know, your kid gets this device or they die. And, you know, what's implanted, what are you going to do? That, you know, my son was abducted from when we fled to Florida last year, and the Mayo Clinic conspired to throw me in a nasty place that looked very much like, and was filled with what appeared to be people of Islamic descent. And I was threatening about terror, you know, talking about terrorists then. And when he was abducted, shortly before that, I had sent a letter to Bill Gates, an email, and told him that, hey, Bill, you know, you just paid $19.6 billion for Nuance. And, and, yeah, just need to let you know that you're fixing to have a really bad case of $19.6 billion of buyer's remorse, because Nuance was funded at startup by DARPA. And Nuance has grown to be a company that Bill Gates felt was worth $19.6 billion. And it was, you know, grown from data mining from human trafficking from victims like us. And I'm sure we're not the only victims of DARPA and these BCI neural implants, because Bill Gates could have, you know, for much less than $19.6 billion, he could have found some way to have somebody, drop a missile or a bomb or something like that and blow us all up. But so there must be a long list of victims with these new BCI neural implants, that, because, you know, studies documented in the RAM project, those memories can be erased so that we don't actually remember ever being implanted, and the devices can be implanted peripherally by a device called a stentrode. So after I sent him that, he sent me back a death threat about my son. And like I said, less than 2 weeks later, when we fled to Florida, my son was abducted after somebody gave him a large amount of methamphetamine down there, and he lied. He said he got it all for That may be true. And the number 8 has a lot of coding things to go with it, and I'm not going to get into all that. But after he disappeared and was taken across many state lines, I received another photograph of him that made him appear as if as if he was brain dead. His eyes appeared brain dead, and there was a very large hollowed indentation in the front of his head. And they threatened me. They sent death threats over the device that they would pull jerk that BCI neural implant out of his head. And it would that of all things, everything has to be the most terrorizing thing that I had seen up until the fact that they really started to want to really bring it home with us and remotely control him after giving him heroin in a school zone and make him act very much like a puppet on a string. It's mind raping. It's mind raping, and even though rape is certainly one of the crimes against humanity, as is human torture and unethical human experimentation. Child soldiers, it's what they did with Luke, and forced disappearance of persons, as they did with Luke, and um, um, kidnapping. Well, as far as kidnapping goes, I've been held hostage for 3 decades now. Prime of my life has been stolen away from me, and these 3 decades, um, uh, I just lost it. I just got glitched. And whoever's recording this will absolutely be just confirmed. Yep, I just got glitched. But after 3 decades and the prime of my life gone, and my children haven't been implanted at a very early age, and my nephew had been implanted after traumatic brain injury at a very early age. Certainly, we deserve more than no quarter. We deserve to live. And so that's one thing that I promised, God and my nephew and my children a very long time ago, that I would continue to fight tirelessly until we are saved and protected, and even with my very life. And certainly they put me to the test several months ago when they almost attempted to murder me because of the fact that I told the director of nursing, the nursing administrator of Beaufort Memorial Hospital, that the CT scan that I had several, just not long before that, was absolutely falsified because of the presence of this BCI neural implant, and that I would not go back to that ER again if Dr. Mercier was on duty after he committed gross criminal, high aggravated medical malpractice and aggravated assault against my nephew. Um, so that certainly was the reason why Memorial absolutely, beyond any shadow of a doubt, conspired with others. The Secret Service and the local law enforcement have been implicated by the Department of Defense Office of Inspector General in that. But that requires some more explanation too. But they certainly put me to the test as far as me being very honest and about fighting for them, with my very life, if necessary. Um, as soon as I hit stop on this, I'm going to forget. I'm going to remember something else I was going to say, and I don't understand why it is that my people that that claim to be my friends on this keep leaving me high and dry because they know that I get glitched and have problems remembering where I lost things, kind of the way they've done Clayton so many times too. Um, Here's the thing with the bioterrorism, with that COVID-19 bioterrorism super spreader events that were happening, not just on my property, but inside my house. Whoever was controlling me over this BCI neural implant was actually remotely controlling me to get up out of the bed, go to the front door, take a key, unlock my padlocked front door, because I had absolutely shut down every possible way for somebody to burglarize and break into my house. I was actually being remotely controlled to get up and allow this person to come into my house. But then, whoever was on this device was also, and as the RAM project demonstrates, able to manipulate or affect my memory in such a way as to delete the audio, what I remember seeing and hearing and the whatever kind of, I don't know what interaction I had, but um, um, they were actually able to delete that from my memory. But having deleted that from my memory did not delete the people that are on this device that are not on the side of the people that are that hurt us and torture me, both of us every single day with unbearable shocks and physical pain and mental torture and torment and terrorism, things like that. Um, they still recorded every single byte of all audio, video, brain activity being transmitted and received through this BCI neural implant, whatever kind of, you know, signals or stuff was transmitted to me to force me for them to be able to erase that memory. Those servers and those remote locations that are not dependent on anybody else, as people previously thought, they got every single byte of that. And those videos, I have been accused of being a member of an operative of ISIS terrorist group for a long time now, and I never knew why. But recently, people are trying to force me and threaten me with our very lives for me to publicly announce that those bioterrorism super spreader COVID-19 events that occurred in my home were not, but were actually acts of terrorism by the ISIS radical Islamic terrorist group. But it has been confirmed by the people that are connected to me that these people look absolutely 100% like American citizens. They did not appear to have any sort of Islamic descent whatsoever. And surely because of the involvement of Bill Gates in this and Nuance with the events of bioterrorism on this property, him having bought Nuance to lock all that information down as far as all the victims of the BCI neural implants, all the data mining that made him and Elon Musk and many other people, Nuance, a shitload of money. He locked all that down, and I'm sure that list of victims has been deleted so that, it would protect not only him and his money, but also Nuance and DARPA in the crime ring, etc. And also the radiology, Nuance very, very, very suspiciously decided to develop radiology technology, which is not in keeping with their normal, sort of projects and things like AI and machine learning, speech recognition. I've been told that was one of the ones that had a lot to do from Dragon Naturally Speaking on forward as far as speech recognition technology. And they also said that in addition to using that, my my nephew who was with the brain damage, um, for to do these memory kind of things, and they claim it's to restore memory, but obviously they can take them away just as easy. That he was used also to develop speech rehabilitation technology, and I have to wonder, with me having been attacked several years ago with these new HPM weapons that caused me to have my blood became as thick as molasses. Somebody on this device suggested I go to another hospital when I didn't feel well, and I went to another hospital, went to Carolina Medical Center in Hardyville, South Carolina, and when they drew my blood, it was thick as molasses. I was diagnosed with deep vein thrombosis and pulmonary embolism, which of course could have easily killed me, ended my life. But I've also been told that they wanted to permanently incapacitate me so that I pose no threat to ever testify or talk like I'm talking right now about any of this. But certainly if I had a blood clot in my brain, a cerebral vascular accident, this would have also quite possibly caused me to have speech um, speech problems, and perhaps even I could have been used to experiment and poke prod lab monkey to develop speech rehabilitation neural implants for stroke victims as well. But they've experimented on me for many years on different things. They've experimented on attention deficit disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder. They made me think for a while that I was actually schizophrenic myself. I take all kinds of antipsychotic medications, never did any good, but they actually induced Parkinson's symptoms in me that I went on. I understand the technology was data mined for me and used to develop different brain implants for Parkinson's disease. And for almost 2 years, a person who claimed that they were Jeff, who is not Jeff, claimed to be a doctor of neurology and was going to treat me remotely over the satellite connection for my depression, even though, I really wasn't feeling that depressed. He said that I needed to be treated for my depression, but because there was an ethical problem with him treating me in the office because we were involved in a relationship, because of the ethics of it, that he was going to treat me remotely over this device. But come to find out, it was actually a lot of treatment for, was actually a lot of experimentation and research to develop a neural implant for depression. Also, they've claimed that due to a lot of experimentation and exploitation, that they're going to develop a BCI neural implant for female sexual enhancement based upon my responses and brain activities, certain things, and certainly tried to sell me on that, but in no case should someone, even if they don't have a lot of sexual satisfaction, should consider brain surgery for these devices. And that's one thing that Elon Musk, he did his demonstration about these BCI neural implants being so great for everybody, but Elon Musk wants to it's not enough for Elon Musk to be the richest man in the world and have remote control cars. Elon Musk is into the this sadistic psychopathic gratification that he would get from remotely controlling other human beings. That power trip. And after he talked about how wonderful these would be for everybody, Elon Musk brought 3 pigs, 3 swine, 3 pigs out onto the stage to demonstrate the remote control, mind control, remote control capabilities of these devices, using those pigs. And I think it had a lot to do with not only him making a statement about how he felt about a lot of other people besides him, being so elite, high and mighty, and superior to all the rest of us, but I have a feeling that because of the fact that DARPA and this crime ring, kind of feel entrapped and blackmailed by people like Bill Gates after Bill Gates bought Nuance, and Elon Musk. He was probably toying with these other people they're fearing, the consequences of all these crimes against humanity, treason, and well, President Joe Biden said back in December that they're capable of remote mind control, and that they're crimes against humanity and threats to national security. But at the same time, he did not pull his BlackRock out of China. He blamed this all on China and admonished and sanctioned some Chinese companies, but he just sent BlackRock over there, and this is all happening right in the United States. And as many times as I've written to Joe Biden, I don't see how I could possibly not know it. So anyway, so I think that all this has a lot to do with the fact of how Elon Musk got FDA approval to start implanting innocent, naive human beings with these devices this year. It probably had a lot to do with bribes, and it also had a lot to do with the fact that a lot of people feel entrapped and blackmailed in a lot of ways. And so that, with that being the case, that's also the reason why Bill Gates decided to choose my property and me to commit these acts of what appeared very likely. I have some doubts, but if I'm killed before I'm able to voice these doubts, then those doubts would certainly be gone too. But that's why he picked me, a BCI neural implant victim of DARPA too, because he wanted to wrap me up in that, and so that people that could possibly it may cause even more entrapment and blackmail to use me as a pawn in this, when nobody has the right. I don't care how much goddamn money you have, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, or whoever else. Nobody has the right to use other human beings as pawns for greed and to protect their own lives and freedom and quality of lives, and making our lives a living hell. We don't deserve it. We do not deserve it. Not a one of us ever signed up for it. And in fact, who would ever consent to having an invasive, experimental, life-threatening implant in their being placed in their brain? Even if they were paid for all the data mining and all the many years of hard work that we've given, and not been compensated, but nobody would ever consent to that. But so Elon Musk, he's got these videos showing these robots, because I can imagine ain't no damn neurosurgeon worth his weight in anything going to actually be involved in implanting these devices in human beings. Nobody ever talks about the fact that these devices are fully capable of knowing exactly what the victim with the implant is thinking all the time. It's easy. It's easy. I mean, DARPA invented the internet. These thoughts are actually transmitted over the SPCI interface. I mean, over the SPCI device, neural implant, to a satellite, to a brain-computer interface, which has a program software that's been developed to actually interpret that into exactly what I am thinking at all times. And if that is not just the most violating thing you could ever possibly imagine, and also very, very defeating, because any attempt to break free of being held hostage by these people that are on the satellite connections and absolutely refuse to let us go under any circumstances, while they torture us, sexually exploit me, mind rape my son, and just a plethora of just the most heinous possible crimes here on American soil of American citizens. And every single one of us either has special needs as identified under the American Disabilities Act, or in my son's case is handicapped with cerebral palsy. So that's the reason why that Bill Gates used this property. But here's the other thing about that. Like I said, there's potentially a shadow of a doubt as perhaps whether that terrorism contributed to the grossly disproportionate death toll in the United States from COVID-19 or not. But also during these terrorism things, there were some very, very, very suspicious, strange other things that happened, including some genetic mutations. I have 4 aquariums full of fish that it suffered genetic mutations, and also it has stopped them completely from procreating, for breeding, when these particular fish that I raise are all of the cichlid species, and they are very, 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 very prolific, and also it actually did cause genetic mutations in my snails, most definitely, without a doubt. So I have a feeling that perhaps, in addition to possibly contributing to the COVID-19 bioterrorism super spreaders, and which would, if true, would have resulted in the mass murders, genocide of over 900,000 innocent Americans. But also, I have a suspicion, because of the fact that Bill Gates is into all this GMSO, this genetically modified seeds, and he's buying up all the land in the United States, all the farmland. I don't know if he's planning to starve us to death or not. I'm starting to wonder if maybe Bill Gates is actually some kind of radical terrorist that hates Americans, just like, the Taliban and ISIS and Al Qaeda, things like that. So I think that it could, like so many other things that I've seen from this racketeering group over so many years, they rarely do things just for one purpose, just for one reason. And so it could be both. But the fact that he invested in BioNTech before we even ever heard of COVID-19 or the pandemic or anything like that, it's just an absolute slam dunk about people knowing that this was going to happen. The fact that China has had very, very, very little mortality and morbidity. I think it's 0.9 per 100,000, um, 0.9 deaths per 100,000 Chinese citizens. With them having about the same square miles as far as the size of China, but but certainly much more densely populated. It kind of impeaches the fact that social distancing to in mass to protect ourselves from infectious respiratory droplets suspended in the air could possibly was the only means of transmission of COVID-19, because we all got when we were wearing masks and social distancing remotely, working remote from home, which of course really, really, really served to defeat and oppress me terribly, because nobody was ever in the office, and everybody wants me to send stuff through the mail. Well, these bastards intercept all my mail that I send. Well, of course they do, because they know exactly what I'm going to do before I can do it, because they read my mind. So, but I, so it's and my phones are tapped. I can't talk on the phones to anybody. So I have to physically go somewhere. And so all around Washington, even though I had two GPS units telling me to go in different directions, these GPS satellites transmitting incorrect navigational results to two different phones that I had. So even if I got anywhere successfully, then, of course, everybody working remotely from home for the pandemic certainly, then was very effective for these people. But, so anyway, that has a lot to do with it. But and so, I think that something else was done here besides just what, everybody thought was the bioterrorism super spreader events that, absolutely every federal agency and law enforcement locally ignored me for a very, very long time. And I have to wonder, Merrick Garland, if that's why you didn't dispatch the FBI to the PTA meetings after so many times of me complaining about all this directly to Merrick Garland, the United States Department of Justice. And so, I mean, I believe that Merrick Garland probably got with Christopher Wray and decided, well, we've ignored her for so long, and God knows, look at the mortality and morbidity for some reason from COVID-19, and I believe that's why he probably did that FBI PTA dog and pony show. Certainly, it seemed like, with the way Tom Cotton laid into Merrick Garland at those congressional hearings about that it seemed like Tom Cotton just, you know, sometimes the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And so, I have to wonder if maybe perhaps somehow Tom Cotton didn't suspect that something else was going on there, because it was such a frivolous, ridiculous dog and pony show to show just how much Merrick Garland cares about kids. But he doesn't care about my kids. And he doesn't care about these 1,300 school children that are still being threatened every single day with heroin distribution within 500 feet of them. And he didn't care about any of those kids when all the bioterrorism was happening on my property, and everybody was just saying that I was crazy. So, it's really hard to get on, it's certainly like, Merrick Garland to actually try to defend himself and say, well, we've had, over 900,000 American citizens that certainly should have depended on all of us and held to a higher standard. Well, we didn't pay any attention to her because we thought she might be mentally incompetent, and so I'm not guilty of perpetuating, thus participating in mass genocide of American citizens. But my defense being, well, not guilty because of her insanity. I don't think it would work. But like I said, once again, I'm not interested in prosecuting or testifying or bearing witness to any of this. All I want to do is for us to be disconnected from these life-sucking parasitic satellite connections, and allow us to be free and happy and relocated, with enough money for us to be able to survive. That's all I'm asking. And it really is. We have nothing to do with being in the middle of these different sides fighting against each other and attempting to trap and blackmail and all that each other and everybody fearing for their money and never considering, that, they, instead of anybody remembering the golden rule that I'm sure all this 1,300 school children learned a long time ago in kindergarten or the first grade or Sunday school. um, they've all just absolutely, you know, tossed the golden rule out. That Windows 11, it's curious that he just released Windows 11 and there's 11 crimes against humanity. But they've just completely just forgotten all about the golden rule, and they saw us as as a goose with golden eggs. And now that we're causing, they feel like we're obstacles in them potentially losing. How can you lose what you never had? This is what, like I said, these devices and everything was well, it was built on human trafficking and terrible human rights violations and crimes against humanity from data mining and things like that. But, you know, the American taxpayers pay for every single bit of the research, development, the satellites that we're connected to right now, the personnel that continue to torture us by painful shocks and causing me to have, intermittent bladder incontinence to slow me down when I'm trying to help save our lives. So how can you can't lose what you never had, and so they can't say that they're going to lose trillions of dollars of profits, trying to blame it on China and focusing on that China, claiming that China has developed a friendship with the Taliban when due to many events during the past 20 years, it looks like including some parting gifts recently for the Taliban. I have to wonder, why are we blaming this on China? Well, we blamed also the coronavirus COVID-19 thing on China, and it was lab created beyond a shadow of a doubt. And these variants keep coming and coming and coming, and it's not plausible. But you keep everybody stirred up. Now I look on the news today, and Russia's threatening us with a nuclear thing after months and months and months of Biden doing nothing, supposedly, that we knew about, as far as any sort of even a drop of diplomacy that could have resulted in perhaps, well, telling the president of Russia, look, well, the Ukraine was formerly part of your empire, so even though the Ukraine people don't really deserve it and don't really, they deserve better than this, but rather than us potentially get this escalating in some sort of nuclear conflict, allow us to do some humanitarian kind of refugee kind of things with these people and say, hey, we can't help you stay here, but we'll help you move so that you're not killed by by the Russian president, in these attacks. But he didn't do that. I don't know how you say Fauci, Anthony, whatever, that doctor. It sounds to me like he was trying to set us up for the next round of vaccine related government misappropriation gravy train headed right down the tracks when he mentioned something about, the people of the Ukraine have a special, he said, vaccine resistant tuberculosis. Well, we haven't had a vaccine for tuberculosis in over 100 years. So I would imagine that if TB mutates anything like it, any, not certainly not like these supposed variants just keep popping up, popping up, popping up. But if with the TB, well, yeah, we haven't had a vaccine for it. We don't vaccinate for it. There are there's some drug resistant vaccines. So hey, we got this. We've got so now, the way that Biden finally said, okay, we're going to let refugees into the country, but only refugees with families in the United States. So what that would have done is dispersed these people with this supposedly resistant tuberculosis, disperse them throughout the country. Kind of like what I, have to wonder might have been very similar to these COVID-19 super spreader bioterrorism events. And so that way, right here on the tail end of all the COVID-19 stuff, we would have to go into another round of a free-for-all vaccine thing and misappropriations with all these government partners that these businesses really should be supporting themselves instead of taking all this taxpayer money. God knows, you look at all the money that was just slung at all these partners that the United States government, all these private entities that the United States government has, and it just every federal agency got this COVID-19 gravy train money and was dispersing it to all kinds of different companies, but yet only three companies ever developed a vaccine for it. COVID-19, and I suspect that that's the reason why he was going to do that. But let me just say this now, it has been very strongly suggested that this was the next plan. This was going to be the next big win as far as everybody that's already much rich and wealthy. For a lot of billionaires were made during COVID-19. They're testing. They're very inexpensive, simple tests for tuberculosis, including a TB time test and a PPD test. So, I certainly hope that somebody, at the border, tested every single one of these Ukrainians for this tuberculosis, whether it's resistant or not. We don't want it. We don't need it. And certainly, by him making these statements, its announcement, it certainly got us all ready and prepared for. Oh, okay, we're going to let's go ahead and start the next, bio pharmaceutical sort of endeavor. But, like I said, really, at so many times with this racketeering group for so many years, I've seen they rarely do just one thing. They usually have different motives for everything that for these agendas that they plan very, very, strategically, and it's, just take up a lot of they do a lot of planning. And here's a good example, and I'm just going to leave it at this, and I'm just once again, I'm just at the point now where it's getting to the point where if they just disconnect us, let us go, leave us alone completely, and get us out of the middle of the hornet's nest, I'll shut up. I'll find something else to do. I was Pollyanna before all of this started. I would like to find my rose-colored glasses and go back, not go back, but just go forward and not discuss all this information ad nauseum. We have a right to spend our lives with life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, just as much as anybody else. And we don't deserve to be murdered and to be tortured and to be oppressed and be threatened constantly and terrorized, tormented, tortured, and stood up and my heart broken and devastated, for years and years. They killed Emma. Then, of course, they killed Chloe. They killed the love of my life, Scott. Blamed it on me. They killed Catfish, my Rottweiler, because his name was Hurricane's Cracker Man, and I named him after a song from Stone Temple Pilots' first album, Core. Number 10 was Cracker Man, and the chorus to that is Roll Me, Roll Me, Roll. And they killed him because of that, because it, threatened me not to roll. And also, of course, they, back, about 14 years ago, they had ordered Galen Smith, which was a local crime ring member, to, once the device rendered me unconscious, he dragged me from my living room. I was standing up in my living room. He dragged me to my bedroom, and they allowed me to regain consciousness, he was committing aggravated sodomy on me. And that had a lot to do with, if I ever woke up and realized what was going on, there's some other history involved with that, but that they would kill me if I tried to fight. Well, it's not a matter, I'm not interested in fighting. I would just like to be happy and go. I don't like to fight. I will, I don't have any other choice, because I'm just not going to allow anybody to murder us and deprive us of the only life that we're ever promised. In addition to that, there was Morris Ray who attacked me and he beat me almost to death. I've got a scar right here. Oh, but there's a scar right here where he sliced me across both sides of my mouth. I had to have both sides of my mouth, repaired, and I've got a scar here. He broke my nose. I've got a scar right here where where it actually broke the skin when he broke my nose, and every single bit of that had to do with MRI, because he had and I was later threatened by that. You don't want an MRI, do you? But it was because his right eye he had a cross eye, and of course that was code for, if I got an MRI, that I would be murdered for that, a cross, that put on somebody's grave. Um, and so I was threatened about a lot of that, about, once again, talking about any of this and exposing anybody. But I haven't, I've said very few names in this. Um, so, I'm trying to be as diplomatic as I possibly can with our lives on the line every single day, with it always, escalating, and the quality of our lives truly suck. After this bioterrorism, for whatever reason, they ruined my livelihood, my plants out in the yard. That I was selling house plants online, and I had to shut down my business. And I've been told the reason for that is because, during these bioterrorism attacks, whether they were actual super spreaders of COVID-19, or whether they were because of these other, to produce other biological bioterrorism through these other biological weapons that cause genetic mutations that clearly can be demonstrated here. All those addresses of all these people that I shipped out all over the country, and Hawaii and Puerto Rico. They didn't want, any records of any of those of those customers and all those addresses that I shipped my plants out to all over the country, and those parasitic mites were definitely on those plants. Before I knew what was going on, then I shut my business down, and of course they destroyed my plants, so I can't even try to even access those online shops ever again, and I'm sure they've erased those names, just like Bill Gates has erased all the names from all the victims of BCI implants from DARPA. So, I guess that pretty much does it. But, like I said, I'm just at the point now where, if absolutely I'm going to be granted no quarter. And, it's funny, my son told me the other day he went to the Dollar Tree, and now right here at the Dollar Tree around the corner from us, everything's gone up to $1.25. That's, um, anyway, but if I'm just absolutely going to have to pay for my life, with my life, for this one, we clearly don't deserve it, and we're just in the middle of a lot of stuff that I clearly don't understand. Then I'm going to continue to make as much of an impact, to leave this world, you know, in hopes that by the information I've provided, a lot of these terrible crimes and terrorist genocide, um, you know, somebody's going to pay attention, and somebody's going to do something about it, so that the people that do go on and are able to enjoy their lives actually do have some quality of life and leave this earth, a decent place for their children and their grandchildren. These BCI implants, if they get implanted in these terrorists, man, we're done. This is a global crisis, and it has to be stopped. And since, they're absolutely, hell bent on doing nothing except just completely, making me stand, continuing to stand me up, murder my pets. Well, that's the reason why I preserved Chloe all this time, since August, when they killed her, about, punishing me for peacefully protesting and threatening my life about, ever testifying against any of them. She's been preserved and ever since. And she had a remote control implant, and it definitely provides that missing link between CIA's remote control dogs back in 1963, and and DARPA going on to do these BCI implants in human beings. So, you know, and I'm just not going to I'm not going, to when they say, if I want to eat, if I want to live, then I'll keep my mouth shut. I've never heard anybody eating with their mouth shut, and I'm not going to. My life is going to be just like Chloe's. She only had a very few years left to live, and I thought about that a lot. I thought, God knows, I don't know how I'm going to survive losing her, because she was the most special, only little dog I'd ever had, until I replaced her with my Chihuahua adopted puppy named Rico, and they made me lose Rico at the same time with that last attempted murder. Um, But they've attempted to murder me plenty of times since then because they've tried to stop my heart time and time and time again by giving me chest pains. But somehow, somewhere, somebody's fixed that they can't kill me and stop my heart like they did Chloe's. So my life's not going to be worth nothing either. I have a bucket list of a lot of wonderful random acts of kindness and senseless acts of beauty, kinds of things that I would like to do, kind things for, children and old people, vulnerable people, incidentally, a lot of the same groups that are affected by, biological warfare, terrorism, such as with COVID-19. So, if people are going to absolutely relentlessly insist and persist and continue to escalate the threats in our lives until they actually kill us, then I am not going to, I'm not going to shut up, and it's going to leave a mark. It's going to leave a mark. I've never, my daddy taught me a long time ago, and, in a fight, if I had to fight, even if I, lost, make damn sure I left a mark and make damn sure that they remember that that they shouldn't have attacked me to begin with. And clearly, there's a lot of other ways. Somebody was sending me a code the other day about armistice. I don't know, but I can't get anybody to step up. And even in fact, the fact that they can use disguising technology on their voices, which would lead them to be, undetectable and untraceable. They're so damn worried about incriminating themselves that they just keep incriminating themselves rather than somebody stepping up. And even if they haven't taken responsibility, they'll try to send me all this code and all this, bullshit messages that I don't know how to interpret. And then when I do interpret it and then I get promises made for people that I believe are on my side, actually, come to find out, maybe they're not. But I happen to know that, there's at least one person that has stuck by me for many years. And he's backed by a team of neurologists and people that are involved in criminal justice and also people that are very concerned with international human rights. So, with all that being said, I'm going to continue to document this and spread awareness of this so that even if I am forced to leave this earth unfairly and very cruelly and completely needlessly when I'm more than willing to negotiate and compromise for the best outcome for everyone, even though I don't like many people that are involved in this. Just leave us alone, disconnect us, leave us alone, let us go, get us out of the middle because somebody is using us as pawns back and forth. And we just simply don't deserve that. In addition, I need my nephew back. And that shouldn't be a very hard thing to do, to declare that adoption illegal and give me my nephew because he's I'm his next of kin. And every single day that child is missing, I can guarantee you those crime ring members that were allowed to adopt him have not taken him for the expert pediatric neurology care that he must have, that he deserves. He's not getting the love that he deserves. And I'm not able to give him the love that I deserve to be able to give him, as well as my children. And so every single day, he could hit his head on the playground, become permanently incapacitated, or die. I talked to Agent Downs, who is the head of the Bluffton FBI office today, and I explained to him about that very, very clearly, very emphatically. And once again, he told me that I needed to get a psychiatric evaluation, that I really needed help. So fuck you, Agent Downs. I told you on the phone today that you're busted. And, if I'm given no other choice except bring all of you down because y'all insist on putting me down in a hole, then certainly there's going to be plenty of information out there for people to find out what's exactly been going on, because we would much prefer to be relocated out of this country and be disconnected and left alone and live quietly someplace else. And whatever y'all want to do, if y'all want to fuck this world up on both ends, then that's up to you, but leave us alone. Leave us alone. Take us out of the middle because we don't deserve to be there. But as long as I'm in the middle, I'm going to keep swinging, and whoever I hit, fuck you. With all due respect, which is absolutely none. So, but here's the thing. I'm fighting against a bunch of really big, powerful men in high and mighty positions, and they're using these strategic kind of tactical kind of things on me, but you just don't push somebody with my kind of maternal instinct and with my big heart. It hasn't worked. So rather than calling me insane to perpetuate and allow all these kind of violations to continue, rather than calling me insane, what is the definition of insanity? That would be, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Well, the only different results is this: you're continuing to escalate, you're continuing to bring us down, and I'm not going to, I don't like to be alone. I'm not going down by myself. If y'all can't, if y'all want to give me no quarter after, 3 decades of not paying me a goddamn dime for anything, when a lot of people become billionaires on my mind and on my children's minds and on my nephew, then, and say that we're not going to eat, and we're not going to live, I'll shut up. I'll be happy to go. But don't stop pushing me around. Stop torturing me. Stop attacking me with these weapons that have absolutely no redeeming quality in military combat whatsoever. I don't care what you say. They don't. What are we going to radiate the Taliban? Oh wait, no, we don't want to hurt the Taliban that bad, do we? So anyway, yeah, let's do something else. And that was the final thing I was going to say, and I just got off track with that. When Donald Trump was a lame duck, he ended up executing 13 people on federal death row in Terre Haute, Indiana. But at the same time, like I said, everybody can't do things just for one thing, just for one objective. He wanted to go ahead and do a couple of different things. And so in addition to that, he created a super spreader event himself, Donald Trump, when he did all these executions in Terre Haute, Indiana. And here's the reason why. First of all, he wanted to really impact everyone about how heinous and brutal and vile and just terrible the capital punishment is, and he was trying to claim that it is a violation of human rights, a human rights violation. So in addition to that, he has a super spreader event. We have no idea how many other Americans that were not on death row that he killed, that with the super spreader events. And so to show how heinous it was, well, he threw that election. He's one-term president. He'd been impeached already twice. Wouldn't even cooperate, provide documents or anything for either impeachment. He knew he was going out. And he did it on purpose, knowing that Joe Biden was coming in and that Joe Biden had suddenly done that 180-degree complete change of heart attitude and campaign promise about abolishing the federal death penalty, even though as a senator from Delaware, Joe Biden wrote the Biden law that made 60 other offenses, capital offenses as well, including non-violent drug offenses. And one of the people that Donald Trump ordered executed on federal death row in Terre Haute was an African American man that was an accomplice to 2 murders when he was 18 years old. He didn't pull the trigger; he was an accomplice, and Donald Trump ordered him executed for that. So so there was that. So now everybody's leaning. Donald Trump knows he's going to the. He's not going to get reelected. He wasn't even planning to. He threw that election, and so he's pushing us all and manipulating us and fucking with us psychologically. So everybody starts softening up, like supposedly Joe Biden has done, but he didn't. Joe Biden got paid to change his opinion on the federal death penalty because a lot of these people are sweating the death penalty. But as long as they have all this massive wealth and all these powerful strings to pull, and they'd never run out of judges to bribe, because I've been a victim of too many judges, too many different courts, too many jurisdictions, in the United States to know better. They'd never run out of judges. So, the high and mighties never really were that concerned with actually being prosecuted at all, because they figured, well, hell, as long as death penalty is not a consideration. They even if they were convicted on their initial prosecution, they'd always find somebody to be able to bribe to overturn their convictions subsequent to that. But if they're graveyard dead, you can't overturn that conviction. I'm not a criminal, and hell, they've been sentencing me to death a long time. An innocent person. So anyway, so that that was done. But here's the thing, so. Imagine how the American people are going to feel when they realize that those executions, more executions by any one American president than in the past 100 years, was actually done to manipulate us and to fleece us and to push us all towards these human rights violations. The death penalty being a violation of human rights, when he also did the super spreader event and certainly, that was certainly a violation of human rights. That's one of the crimes against humanity. Murder is certainly one of the crimes against humanity. So I have a feeling, if the American people ever discover this, they're going to go the other way and realize that, well, you know what, that death penalty is the only thing that these people that are so guilty of so many heinous, vicious, unthinkable, unconscionable human rights violations, crimes against humanity, and treason are really fearing is actually dying for. And anything less than that, they're pretty cool with because they got the money to buy themselves out of. So, so that actually says that the only thing that would actually curtail or send a very clear resonating message that we support and protect and defend human rights and innocent human beings, especially, is that death penalty, to show that you violate people and commit all these heinous crimes and violate human rights, then you'll pay for it with your life. That's the only thing that they're concerned about. So I think that Donald Trump probably shot himself in the foot, and I have to wonder why George Bush absolutely refused to sign that Rome Statute. It seems to me like, if we're a member of the United Nations, we shouldn't pick and choose. Actually, being one of the largest, most powerful, most advanced countries on earth, we ought to subscribe to every single one of the statutes, every single one of the bylaws, and every single thing about the United Nations, all departments, whether it's the Security Council, the Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights, and there's a reason, and I suspect, I'm sorry, but I'm very suspicious about what happened at Tora Bora with George Bush when they let Osama bin Laden escape shortly after 9/11, and then we went on to Osama bin Laden. Barack Obama with Osama bin Laden. They claimed that they killed Osama bin Laden, but I happen to believe that was probably greasy Saudi bin Laden money that actually protected his bin Laden's life again. From that, I doubt whoever they tossed in the Arabian Sea with 300 pounds of chains would send him to the bottom of the Arabian Sea in a bag. I happen to believe that wasn't Osama bin Laden. But Osama bin Laden Barack Obama got on TV and proclaimed that we finally found him, things like that. And he said, but we buried him in the Arabian Sea. We buried him at sea to observe and respect the Islamic tradition. Well, first of all, he was a goddamn terrorist. Why you think he was any good, devout, God-fearing, Allah-fearing, Islamic person? No, he wasn't. He wasn't. He was a monster. He was a murderer. So why should we respect his religious? He didn't have any. Secondly, Islam. Most of the Islamic states, those Arabs, whatever, they're sandy. They're desert. Not a lot of water to bury those Islamic people in observance of that Islamic tradition. I've confirmed with devout people of Islamic faith. Islam buries their dead as deep in the sand as possible. So it's bullshit. They dragged him all the way from Abbottabad, Pakistan, all the way back to the Arabian Sea, about 1,000 miles through. Why didn't the people get the opportunity? Why didn't the United States people and those grieving families get the opportunity to see his dead ass? No pictures, anything like that. I think we need to get that Navy SEAL team together and put them on some kind of brain computer interface, because these devices are they're much, 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 much more accurate and with much more confidence than a polygraph, and say, look here, you're going to tell the truth. You lie, you die. And because that's treason. Navy 6, Barack. And while we sent some Navy 6 in there anyway, 1,000 miles from the Arabian Sea, I was punished for that when I was involuntarily committed in Fairfax County, Virginia, Falls Church Dominion Hospital, when they took me down there because I started protesting after the crime ring bribed somebody to steal my minivan that I rented, and I was protesting on in the middle of Richmond Highway, 6 lanes of traffic each way, with a big sign about Afghanistan before we pulled those troops out and abandoned and betrayed all those Afghan people. And so, that got real hot. It was right there before the ceremonies of the 20th anniversary. And people started really getting upset about that. And they put me in Dominion Hospital for 30 days. And here's the thing about that. Okay. Okay. I'd said many, many times that, and certainly, once again, it demonstrated that, and by the way, they started using me for human trafficking. They made me work for free just about the minute I got into Dominion Hospital. But in the human rights violations, they were just absolutely, oh my God. But fortunately, everything, was documented, my vision and my hearing and everything, and stored remotely. But, you know, and I guess maybe that, everything being behind locked doors, I've seen that so many times as far as violating the rights, human rights, civil rights, and patient rights, HIPAA rights of the mentally ill, because they think, well, these locked doors, these people have no way of documenting that. Well, guess what? I do, and all we have to do is kind of make those faces look like snow on the TV, from when it's not on a channel, and every bit of that can be used. So, but the human rights violations were just absolutely incredible. But, I said a lot of times, I said, why in the world would they send Navy SIX? And I confirmed this with a general at the Pentagon that, why would they send Navy SIX 1,000 miles into Abbottabad, Pakistan? Well, I know Navy SIX does a lot of things, and they're elite forces, whatever, but we also have Delta Force and some other, forces that may have been more effective. Hell, they could have sent CIA in. Why they send the CIA to try to capture Osama bin Laden shortly after 9/11, and refused to allow us to send in military troops, and these drug warlords, CIA was paying off to supposedly, help them catch Osama bin Laden in that Tora Bora 6 mile by 6 mile wide, 6 mile long span of deserts and caves, stuff like that, with mountainous trails and stuff. Um, you know, that's why didn't the CIA look around and go, well, hell, 5 o'clock, all these poor Afghans that these drug warlords were paying to find Osama bin Laden, which was a little questionable anyway, because you never know what side they were actually on. At 5 o'clock, and 5 o'clock, those Afghans said, hey, it's 5 o'clock, we're going home. So they left all night with, I think, what was it, 19 people to guard those mountainous trails. So maybe that's why George Bush didn't want to sign that Rome Statute. I'm not sure. A lot of other things, go to it. I realized today that H.W. Bush, was director of the CIA a few years before, George, his son took office. But, I said many times, why did they send, Navy is sailors. My father was a sailor. He was a Navy. And why did they send the sailors in there, 1,000 miles? Well, guess what? During my appeal to my involuntary mental health false imprisonment in Dominion Hospital, Falls Church, Virginia, guess what the judge's name was? Tanya Sailor, as it was, of all things. And she did look like she was from some sort of Islamic descent. So blatant, and it's clearly, a fact that this crime ring just certainly does not have they have no concern whatsoever with how many people they wrap up in this, how many judges they take down, and that's a very clear example. There'll always be another judge to take down. I was very concerned with the final judge, the final lawyer that was appointed in my final appeal, because if I'd lost that, I'd been locked up for 6 months against my will, illegally. And I was promised so many times by people in this device that as soon as that 20th anniversary ceremonies, all that was over with, that I would be released, but it was bullshit. They stayed there, maybe stayed there the whole time, while they posted signs about not on my watch, and threatened me about calling 911 from the patient phone. So I said, look here, I've been falsely in prison and mental institutions a long, long time to perpetuate these bastards. Never, ever, ever could a psychiatric patient from one of those hospital phones call 911. It's always blocked. And it was a threat about me talking about 911. And then they posted all the signs about George Bush. And then, because I was talking about the sailor, the Navy SIX sailors, and Tanya Sailor, Judge Tanya Sailor, tried to, she certainly denied my appeal, which was absolutely very solid, very, absolutely supported the fact that I did not deserve to have to be there when my dogs were on death row in Fairfax County pounds. So I'll leave them home next time, and that's when they punished me. They murdered Chloe. But that final hearing, remember her first name, her last name was Strom, and I was very concerned because of my relations with Strom Thurmond, my related to him distantly by marriage, and he was the one on the Senate Defense Committee that conspired with my family to actually sign me up to be this lab monkey and slave, sexually exploited, beaten, tortured dad of mine, made billions of dollars for a lot of other people, and never paid a dime, now no quarter. And certainly even more significant and important, and a much greater impact. Even all that is what has happened to my children without my knowledge or consent, and also my nephew. But her last name was Strom. I was like, oh God, no, no, it's a setup. She was great. She was great. I told her about that, and I told her, like, look here, Thaddeus Strom, he was an aide for Senator Strom Thurmond. He came to Christmas dinner at my family's house every year, and every time he stared at me the whole time, and he never said a word. Never said a word. And I was thinking, well, he's very kind of ugly and trollish, but obviously he's really hot for me. And come to find out, he was threatening me sitting in that chair to never say a word about any of this. And just like a doctor threatened me before a hospital before the murder attempt a few months before that, don't ever step foot back in that ER again. I didn't have any choice. They dragged me in there after the SWAT team knocked my door and dragged me there, even though I told them I could not go there. They said, okay, we'll take you to another hospital. And then I ended up at that same hospital. And I told them before, I said, look here, I can't go there. They'll murder me. And God knows they didn't try. So, but yeah, she was great. And I noticed as these doctors, Dr. Diva Carla, and I can't remember the other one's name, Dr. Pigboff, and Dr. Rafiki, and the other director there, the psychiatrist. Anyway, as she was having these doctors and psychologists, Dr. Grouse, who definitely perjured herself and conspired with Officer Cook of the Fairfax County mental crisis team, whatever they call it. They conspired to commit treason and perjury under oath, because they actually said that I was complaining that I was afraid that the hotel manager, Tony, who was smoking cigarettes and walking vigorously at high noon, to send me a threat, because I said, well, now that I quit cigarettes, I won't die of cancer. So they've used that many times to threaten me that I was going to die. And then he's exercising. And of course, I talked so much about being able to exercise my First Amendment rights. And so, he's out there in the height of the day, high noon, smoking cigarettes, like, just chain smoking, walking briskly to send me death threats. And I said, look here. Then after that, after they stripped me of every single bit of my money and put me $22 in the hole in my checking account, and this was the reason why they said that I had to go to the mental hospital rather than allowing me and my two elderly dogs to go to a shelter, because there's some shelters around Virginia that you can go to that take dogs with you. But that wasn't acceptable. But that Tony was doing everything he could to put me out on the street. There was no way I could go out on the street. I had two big crazy dogs, computer printer, just all my protest signs and art supplies to make my signs, things like that. But that Dr. Grouse and Richard Cook actually both testified under oath in that hearing that I said that I was afraid that the hotel manager Tony was going to kidnap me. And I said, well, you know what? If that was not the most blatant, obvious perjury you've ever seen, the man's trying to keep me out on the street. Would have been much easier for him to have kidnapped me, held me hostage if he knew where I was while I was under his roof, rather than putting me out in the street. So but that's just some examples of things. But yeah, that Sailor, you sure fucked up. And I told that today to Agent Downs when he told me once again that I'm mentally incompetent. So that excused all the other acts that I told him about, including my nephew being intentionally mutilated, his life being in imminent danger, and I need him back, please, immediately. Okay, I'd like to go away. We'd like to all go away and live our lives quietly and not seek any sort of revenge or anything else. Just be left alone, disconnected. Our privacy rights, every single one of our rights afforded to us to live out the rest of, well, in my case, of my very, what I have left of my rights, of my life, this happened. But, so I'm in the phone call, hey, Agent Downs, you're busted. And because of the fact that United States Secret Service Director James Murray has been implicated, framed, and blamed for conspiracy in that murder attempt several months ago, I've done everything I could possibly do to reach out to him, because I would think that he would want to clear his name. So he hasn't. So, I understand. I've been told that, the United Nations has this now. I've been lied to a lot of other times. I was told that the Senate Judiciary had it over Christmas, and that came, not to be true, apparently. But, and also the World Health Organization. So, you know, um, I, I can just say that, if something happens to us, every single bit, every single bite, every single recorded continuous recording for a very, very long time from all four of us it is going to be submitted in its entirety. A lot of things have to do with what me being concerned with my own reputation, or not feeling degraded or humiliated or whatever. Certainly as far as my son, I don't really like think about having to just transmitted everywhere about the way that he's been mind raped so many times, and we talk about all the rape offense, aggravated sodomy, the stabbings, the beatings, the broken bones, the terrorist sort of things, but with the COVID-19, there was no way that was transmitted in the hospital via the normal mode of transmission as far as respiratory droplets. And as a registered nurse, I'm very careful about washing my hands. I don't put my hands around my face or anything like that. So it really does. And, the other thing, up on Beaufort Memorial in that mental health unit, after days of, after I had been tested in that ER for nasal swab negative for COVID-19, suddenly out of the blue, they call me up there, and the lab person is there. She wants me to swab again to retest for COVID-19. And she said, well, in addition to the, the COVID-19, this also tests for 19 other viruses. Well, why was the hospital going to go to that expense to test for a total of 20 respiratory viral pathogens? That could have been when I was inoculated, but that would be my mucous membranes. So that does not support it being just one method of transmission. So that, those other doubts, I'm not going to voice them. And I've told the people that, that record everything, that absolutely none of my potential possible doubts can be used in any way, whether I'm dead or alive. Well, if I'm dead, they certainly will not be used in any way. And so, if nobody else cares that, I have these potential doubts, and, I guess it's not any big deal, but, that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. We're not going to release these little small data missiles, about different things. I mean, it will be, the bomb. Something very similar to what Russia is threatening us with, now, as far as a nuclear sort of impact on so many people that, and this case would certainly very much deserve it. So, that's what we're looking at. But like I said, at the same time, no, we're not going to delete it. We're not going to get rid of it. We're not going to turn it over to anybody, because, knowing, these people as well as I do, there's many lies that they promised me, and, all the stand-ups and the devastations and the heartbreakings. Somebody tell me that I love him, and that he loves me. I'm the love of his life, that, he couldn't live without me, and then just abandon me and devastate us like that, was a terrible, terrible thing. So I don't have any trust in anybody keeping their promises. But, so no, we're not going to turn it over. We're not. But, at the same time, there's no reason for anybody in this to not trust me, speaking very honestly, that all we want is out. All we want is out. We must be disconnected and have the same privacy rights as everybody else. We want to relocate someplace safe, not in the United States, and be sufficiently compensated so that, we can live out our lives, you know, um, and be free and happy. That's all we're asking for. Certainly, we deserve that. Certainly, we deserve that. My son, had he not been tormented and tortured for so many years, he should have been in college a very, very long time ago. He's highly intelligent. He is charismatic. He's kind-hearted. Everybody, loves him, but they're hurting him to attack me, because whoever's attacking me is using me as a pawn to attack a bunch of other people that I have no control over. So, please take all this into consideration. If anybody that hears this or sees this has any sort of, ability to change this for us, I would really appreciate it. So that is all for now. But I promised my nephew Luke last year, when his birth parents, I'm very, very ashamed and humiliated and just absolutely disgusted to have to say, they signed over their parental rights to him in the parking lot of Beaufort County Courthouse. And I said then, I told God, I promised God, and I promised him that I would never stop fighting for him, and I never have. And the last time that I was taken to the ER, which ultimately resulted, well, first it starts, with the Beaufort County trying to coerce me to come outside under false pretenses, lie to me. I knew better than that. Usually a mental health evaluation order in South Carolina, under South Carolina statutes applicable to mental health regulations, say that in 72 hours, if that involuntary mental health assessment is not executed, I'm not picked up, then after 72 hours, it expires null and void. But in this particular case, it was escalated beyond I could not believe it. Shocked, horrified, could not absolutely believe it. Escalated to actually bring the Beaufort County SWAT team in on me and beat my front door in. And just about the time I get to the front door, the door flings open, and I'm blinded with blinding lights that were attached to the ends of about 10 assault rifles that could have ended me right there. That kicked in my double gate for absolutely no reason whatsoever. And I have a feeling that had something to do with all this, my gates. I have a feeling that they know that these attacks, these bioterrorism attacks on my property, involve Bill Gates. But they keep them to permanently lock gates for some reason, even though they actually come through the front gates that night and many other times in the past. And I was dragged out of my house, walked down the stairs, don't hurt me, don't hurt me, don't hurt me. And then, one of them, guy probably about a foot taller than me, grabs my left arm and twists it very, violently behind my back until they could cuff me. But when I got in the car, one of the things I said is, please, please, please tell these people in my house, even though they weren't supposed to be in my house, and they were trespassing, and Beaufort County kept insisting that I let them back in. I said, please, please, please tell these people my puppy, my new Chihuahua puppy, is going to get out of that gate that y'all messed up, and he'll get run over and die. But because of the fact that, the Chihuahua puppy's name was RICO, that's the reason that they made me lose that puppy. And also, my other dog, Addie, got out. They let her out on New Year's Eve, and because of firecrackers, they claimed that she ran all the way across a long way to the other side of Sea Island Parkway, opened a door, went in the house, and bit a child. Well, in all my time, I have never seen a dog open a door and go in a house. And coming to find out, I understand that the reason that they did that was, it had to do with people that cared about animal rights and all the dogs that have been murdered. The fact that I lost my little RICO puppy that, I got finally after I regained enough composure or was willing to try to love another little dog again, since Chloe was the first little dog I'd ever had. And like I said, she had a neural implant. But so they made me lose RICO. And then later, my sister got right in my ear, of course, every single bite of it recorded. And she said, and do you know she hurt a child? And I thought, you know what? Boy, didn't she just buy the farm. She's the one that actually consented to that child having intentional brain mutilation at 8 months old at the Memorial Hospital by Dr. Mercier, which is why he tried to kill me. So anyway, that day in that parking lot, when I saw him sign Luke over, David Luke Augustus Newman, now because of that illegal adoption, formerly known as Newton, last known location was Beaufort, South Carolina. A very illegal Judge Novack was responsible for ordering that, and also Ralph Baldwin was the one that had a very different assessment of that child than I did. He actually said that the child was of average intelligence, hyperactive. Well, clearly because of this remote brain control, he was brilliant and philosophical, and discussed, various things that, about COVID-19 and things like that. And in fact, I didn't know whether any of us had implants then. I checked him for a wire when I gave him a bath when he was 5 years old, because I couldn't believe his English was very much like a PhD in English might be, and his reasoning and philosophical. So anyway, so that certainly demonstrates that the BCI neural implant, and the fact that I told everybody, including his parents, that about that threat to his life, that I could find out what was wrong with him during his autopsy. And later they sent me a video over this BCI neural implant connected to a satellite that showed him, that appeared that he was dead and being dragged by a rope by a town, a very sandy, dusty, and I kind of thought, with that look to it, it reminded very, very much of something that I might be seeing in Afghanistan. And so it was that terrorist threat again, just like they killed my terrier, before they started the bioterrorism. But I promised Luke and God that day that I would never stop fighting for him. And so when they dragged me last time to that ER, when they almost murdered me, and incidentally, Mercier was on duty, and he claimed that I had a urinary tract infection on my last visit to that ER, but that was a lie, Mark, because guess what? I didn't give anybody any urine sample, but he certainly documented the fact that Beaufort Memorial Hospital has no hesitation to falsify a lab report. Maybe that has something to do with the COVID-19 later that I was almost killed with in that hospital. But as I lay handcuffed all night there with a cop telling me why didn't I shut the fuck up, and I had. And why didn't I shut the fuck up? I handcuffed, tightly and very uncomfortably, and certainly no flight risk at 56 years old, overweight, and with locked doors. I had no way to get out, but it was definitely excessive force to punish me for all of this. And many times that night I said, "Hey, Dr. Mercier, Dr. Mercier, this one's for Luke, you son of a bitch. This is for Luke. This one's for Luke." And guess what? I proved on that visit that I will fight for him with my very life, because they almost took it. But I'm still here and I'm still fighting. And so, rather than continuing to, push all this power and pull all these strings and coerce all these other people to make our lives a living hell, let's, I'm not saying we have to make up or be friends or anything like that, but just give me something to work with here. I don't have to go away mad. We'll just go away and leave y'all to it. That's all I have to say. And so certainly if somebody would take the lead in this, and even if they don't identify themselves, there's a lot of ways to pull strings and cover up your identity and any fear of any sort of repercussions by doing the right thing here instead of continuing to do the wrong thing. Because the right thing for us is to let us go and to disconnect us, stop holding us hostage while you mentally and physically torture us, sexually, rape me many, many times, and mind rape my son, and continue to endanger that 8-year-old child's life that I will never stop fighting for. So, like I said, that one was for Mark Mercier, and I have been, regardless of how long he lives, he's going to burn in hell in lakes of, of bin Laden, Saudi crude oil, flaming. He's going to burn in hell forever for that. And I showed him that one was for Luke. And rather than this going any further, my nephew, David Luke Augustus Newton, date of birth, 2013, August, okay, wait a second, having a brain problem, August 13th, August 8th, July 13th, 8th, July 2013 was his date of birth. He was born at Medical University of South Carolina. And he was he was adopted illegally by Doug and Nikki Newman. of Beaufort, South Carolina, and she's supposedly a nurse practitioner or something like that, and he was a school teacher at Trinity School, and that's where I emailed him about that death threat that they used. They turned it around on me and said that, because I was trying to protect his life, they were going to block me from having anything to do with him. So, with me putting that information out there, somebody needs to pay attention and help me find that child before something really bad happens to him. I wonder if he remembers me, or if they've used the RAM, knowledge and his BCI implant to completely erase his memory of me like they did previously. Does he, or does he even remember what love even feels like? Well, we have plenty to give him, and plenty that he deserves to have, and plenty that we deserve to be able to give him and to live our lives out free and happy, and not threatened anymore, and not be used for a lot of other people to make billions and billions of dollars, and now they want to kill us. And how can you possibly lose what you never had? So, with that being said, I would appreciate somebody intervening now and stopping all of this.